Julio video drop. I saw it at 6 o'clock that one of the football insiders on Friday night had the Julio announcement. Had that come earlier in the day on Friday? Forgive me, I was on vacation kind of keeping up with stuff.
My wife pointed it out to me on TikTok.
Okay, but so it wasn't during the day. It happened later in the day. All right. That's very Julio. And the reason I'm bringing it up, Julio is never a look-at-me guy, which is so odd for a receiver. It's so odd for a position that is built on look at me. It's all about me. Get me the ball. Julio was never that. So him dropping a video as sort of a news dump at 6 o'clock on a Friday night, oh, by the way, I'm officially retiring, felt right about on point for Julio Jones. I already saw the debates this weekend, and I don't care about them. Is he top 5 or top 10? I think he's top 5. Whatever. You might think he's 7, 8, doesn't matter. If you think he's in the top 5 or top 10, we can have the debate. Here's what I know about Julio Jones. I can argue he's the greatest Atlanta Falcon of all time. You might come back and say it's Matt Ryan. Fine. You could say it's Dion. Fine. We can have the conversation. What I do know is the Falcons are not exactly bathed in all-time greats. And you can diminish anybody you want by the way things end. Nothing ends well. That's just typically how it goes. Matt Ryan was treated like poo, and he asked out of the Falcons when they went after Deshaun. It didn't end well. Deion Sanders said to the Falcons, middle finger, I'm gone after 5 years. Things don't end well typically. But for the bulk of that man's career, he was an all-time great. And for a Falcon organization, again, that has less than a handful of, quote, all-time greats, 7-time Pro Bowler, 2010's All-Decade Team, 13,000 career yards, Falcon franchise leader in catches, yards. If you want to add to his college career, you can do national champion in there as well. But here's the number I love most about Julio. And again, you can diminish it all you want. Julio had more receiving yards through his first 130 games of his career than anybody else in the league, by over 1,000. By over 1,000. He had, in that time, 12,763 yards. That's more than 1,300 more than Calvin Johnson. Antonio Brown's next on the list, Torrey Holton, and Jerry Rice. Again, I think he's a top 5 receiver. If I just did it this way, Chuck, and said, if I combine most talented, most accomplished, I think Julio and Calvin Johnson are the 2 greatest receivers I ever watched. And I got to watch one of them in a Falcon uniform, and he made a trade that was so lopsided actually work out for the Falcons. I tipped my cap to that guy, and I was appreciative every time I got to watch him play. That's how freaking special he was. And I hope Falcon fans recognize that and aren't bitter by the way it ended.
I like the message because it ended really, as you said, bitter's a good word, and he was active in it, and he actually took a couple of sideways shots. Maybe he had his reasons. He lived the life as an Atlanta Falcon. I just watched him. All of us just watched him. So I don't know that. Impactful? More impactful than Dion, and here's why. It was like a month into Dion's NFL career, and there was already talk about, all right, well, he's the best returner in the league. He's the best corner, too. And so that was a month into it. Here's the thing. When it became real obvious he's the best returner in the NFL and he's the best corner, we're going to treat that side of the field like it's covered with lava, all right? We're not going over there. When it's time to punt, we're going to punt it out of bounds. When he returned kickoffs, we're not going to kick it to him. Like, you could avoid Dion. Julio, we're going to feed him all day. That was the one thing about an offensive player with Julio, and whether it was the Carolina game, hell, whether it was the Patriots game. Remember the Patriots game? That one in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Feed him. And that's supposed to work on Friday night when, like, Roswell's playing McEachern. It's not supposed to work in the NFL, and it worked because Julio, he dominated NFL cornerbacks, and that's just not what happens regularly.
So I'm glad you hit on that point. We can all have opinions as people who just watch this stuff and marvel at those talents. Ask any DB in that time, who's the guy? Now, Calvin certainly got that, but it was always Julio because it was the size and strength.
So damn physical.
But with route running. Like, you could line him up in the slot. You could line him up outside. You could move him around. You could do what he knew every part of the route tree and ran them all at an elite level. There was a piece of video I saw yesterday from Larry Fitzgerald talking to his quarterback who, Kyler Murray was like 6 when Julio Jones came into the league. Larry leans over and goes, it's the greatest I've ever seen. And Kyler's like, what? Oh, you're Larry Fitzgerald. It's the greatest I've ever seen at everything he can do. These are his contemporaries saying this about that dude.
Yeah, there's a picture of Julio at Alabama's Pro Day. And I don't know if you can go find it, but it was Julio leaping at Pro Day. And, like, it was impossible what he was doing. And he's like, yeah, I'm cool. I've talked about the South Carolina game before. They lose in Columbia. He breaks his hand, winds up with like 6 catches for 100-something yards and a touchdown. He just keeps playing. He was unbelievable. He broke his foot one time and he couldn't keep playing. That's kind of what it was. And then at the end, there were some Sundays where I started to get the feeling, you know what, Julio just doesn't want to play today. And it wasn't hard to find people who would have that conversation. And then he was snippy on the way out for whatever reason. what he put out the other day, it was nothing but class and love.
It was
wonderful.
And that's great. And I appreciated it. I just appreciated watching a talent like that.
He was unbelievable. He was dominating.
That comes along once in a lifetime. And he was in a Falcon uniform where we don't have that, and we had that for that long.
He's a Hall of Famer, and it will be because of like 90% of like just the raw production was as a Falcon, but every memorable, important, whatever moment was as an Atlanta Falcon. It's not true for Claude Humphrey. He went to the Philadelphia Eagles, led the league in sacks, went to a Super Bowl, and all right, Claude, you're a Hall of Famer.
Same thing with Deion, same thing with other guys.
So this will be an Atlanta Falcon in the Hall of Fame, and that is a rare, rare, rare thing.